Welcome to the Stories That Shape Us podcast. My name is Joanna Danielle. Today I'm talking about for better or worse. Does that include adultery? Is for better or worse influenced by our culture or religion? What makes us stay in a relationship when there's infidelity, betrayal, trauma, and there is other things that is going on? What makes us stay? I know that there are certain things that influences, but before, let me go into this conversation. So this was influenced by a story I saw on Facebook where a woman, and I don't know if these stories are true or not, but this woman, her husband happily married, she felt, but her husband was having a 3-year affair and there was a child through that affair. And she decided to look after him after he had an accident. She nursed him. She nursed him because she felt, for better or worse, meant that she had to stay in situations like that. And it made me think about other situations and scenarios that I know about, for better or worse. Does that include infidelity? Does that include betrayal trauma? Does that include the use of substances and things that are going on in marriage that are sometimes really difficult and painful? Does for better or worse cover those things? And what does it mean? Are we going to stay through? And what are the stories that shape us? The stories that influences those decisions and make some people stay and some people don't. What is it? What makes the difference? Now, when I think about these things, I think there's several things that influences our decision to stay. Culture is certainly one of them. I think cultural beliefs about marriage makes us stay in relationships that are difficult and harmful and are harmful to us. And culture, not just culture in terms of the place that we're from, and I'll talk some more about that, but culture in terms of also religious culture. I was doing a program this weekend, the Trauma Informed Church, and I was challenging the church to start support groups that were going to be nurturing to people in different stages, people who usually feel lost and alone and they would leave. And what are some of the things that the church can do to nurture and support these group of people? And one of the groups that I suggested that they could think about starting was divorce recovery. Well, that was very stirring for two people. And, they said, aren't we going to encourage divorce if we have a divorce recovery group? Aren't we sending a message that it's okay? And there was one particular gentleman that was very upset about the idea of a divorce recovery group because we're sending a strong message to people that it's okay. Of course, a group won't send a message to people that it's okay, but what a group will do is to nurture the people who have been through it, let them know that they're still a safe place. Church is still a safe place for them to be. That's what it will. But I realize once again that culture plays a massive role in the decisions that people make in the for better or worse. And of course, there are people who makes decisions based on their own circumstances, based on what they know of their own lives to do for better or worse. But there is a cultural belief sometimes that is underneath the decisions that we make. So there are also some cultures that that tells about the value of women. Sometimes women who are married seem or treated more valuable than women that are not married, or women that are married and divorced. They're not regarded with as much respect as the women who are married. And so sometimes this encourages staying in relationships that are abusive or harmful in many ways because of the stereotype that are around divorce and how our value, marriage, apparently, it seems, increase our values. And if we are our value, and if we're divorced, then our value somehow decreases. Now we know that that is not true, that our value is not dependent on whether or not we're in a relationship. Our value is innate. We get our value from God, and nothing external takes away from our value. None of our experiences make us less valuable than any other experience. We are just valuable because that's who God says we are. And his sacrifice for Jesus' sacrifice for us gives us value. The fact that we're created in his image gives us value. Nothing, a marriage doesn't give us value, and so divorce doesn't take away from our value. But there are also cultural beliefs and cultural practices that will elevate a married woman and feel like a one that is divorced is no longer as highly esteemed as one that is married. And so sometimes women will make decisions to stay, or people will make decisions to stay in relationships that are harmful because of those messages. Also, the message that forms how you see yourself will impact how you manage difficulties in marriage, that will mean whether you are able to challenge, whether you're able to put some boundaries in place, whether you're able to follow through on those boundaries. The messages that dictates how you see yourself. So whether you feel that you are valuable, that your self-worth is not dependent on what happens here, that you're just worthy and that you have self-worth because that's innate. Also, I believe sometimes messages given to men, many societies are highly patriarchal and men get to do anything and gets away with it. So there's a man who can cheat on his wife, he can have an affair, he can have children through that affair. And the culture, the society will say, well, for better or worse means that you are staying with him. He's going to, as long as he's looking after you, as long as he's looking after your children, as long as you have a home and a roof over your head and you have resources, then it's okay. And even sometimes a woman who don't have all those resources, the society says because he's a man, he's allowed to do it. And we hear things like, men, they're always going to cheat. And so almost, I think two things chips away at somebody's self-esteem. Like people think, well, was something wrong with me? And also we minimize men when we do that because we're saying, well, men really don't have self-control. They don't have to be people of integrity. They don't have to have values. We will excuse whatever they do. And we know that that's unacceptable for men and for women. But oftentimes the society will send a message to this woman about the value of marriage, that you being in a marriage is more important and more valuable than you being safe and you being okay and you being in a place where your worth is respected and you are respected as an individual. You being in a place where people are people of integrity, there's honesty, people are able to be self-controlled and they can honor their commitment and the vows that they make to you. And we don't often, some societies doesn't send that message to a woman. She is told for better or worse means that, funny how sometimes for better or worse doesn't mean that, dear man, you are not supposed to go outside of your marriage. The vows that you made, the commitment that you made to this person means that you are going to learn and develop character qualities that maybe you do not have that will help you to be faithful. And if you're choosing one day that you no longer want to do this, you no longer want to be faithful, that you're going to communicate that in an adult and respectful way and give this person a choice about whether or not they want to stay in a relationship where there's not faithfulness, where nobody is faithful and then everybody's understanding of what's happening and they're free to make a choice. Also, another thing that we get to meet is husbands that have cheated with no remorse. They have no care for the impact that their actions have had on their wives or on the children, on the family, on the relationship. And again, more the message that patriarchy sends to these men that they can go outside of their marriage, they can have affairs. Some are boldly blame their wives, and some are, it's almost as if it's a right that I can do what I want, I can do this. They're not caring of the impact. They're men who would do this, who refuse to go to therapy, who refuse to go to marriage counseling, who refuse to do the work of rebuilding trust in the relationship, who refuse to do the work of proving that they're honorable and trustworthy and respectful, men, and that the relationship, the boundaries that are placed around the relationship are necessary and important, and that they're going to do whatever they can to honor those boundaries that were placed around the relationship. They're going to honor the commitment that they've made. So there are many, of course, other complex reasons that we can discuss around for better or worse. What does it mean? Does it mean staying when the trust is broken, or can we work through it when the trust is broken? Who works through it when the trust is broken? Is it the woman that works through it when the trust is broken? Is it the man that needs to do the work of rebuilding trust if he cares about the relationship? Who should go to therapy? Where should we go? Whose responsibility was the affair? Whose decision was it? And therefore, who should do the work of proving trust? And can a relationship that has been through infidelity survive? If you are in a relationship, or if you have gone through this place of dealing with the pain of trust being broken, and the work of rebuilding rests on your shoulders, the work of rebuilding shouldn't rest on your shoulders. The work of rebuilding should rest on, of course, the work of rebuilding the relationship. Everybody participates in that. But the person who broke the trust in the relationship has the responsibility of rebuilding that trust. Um, and again, this is where the stories that shape our decision making, the stories that tell us about our value as men and as women, the stories that put one above the other, the stories that put one above the other will impact how this is dealt with in the home. The stories of culture and religion that tells a woman that she should just be better, that if she was better, that if she was more off something, then this wouldn't happen. And I really want to speak to that, because I want you to know, if you're listening to this as a woman and that's your experience, that it wasn't anything that you did or didn't do. It wasn't what's going on inside of the marriage. It wasn't where you were or where he was. He made a decision. He made a decision and followed through with that decision. We all have to take responsibility for our decisions. Whatever we do, we have made a decision, and we need to take responsibility for that. We need to take responsibility and ownership for the fact that we made a choice and sit with that choice. How do we sit with uncomfortable choices? And if we're here, this platform is a Christian platform. If we're here and we're people who follow God and we're people who read his words, although I'm wondering, do some people actually read the Bible? Because the things that they say, I'm wondering, I read it and I don't see that. I have read the same passage. I don't see that. I don't hear that. It doesn't excuse bad behavior. On no level does the Bible excuse bad behavior. And so if the Bible is being used to accuse you or to get you to do something that you know is wrong, then you have a choice to make about what you do or what you don't do. And I know sometimes that these are not easy choices. Sometimes when we feel pressured into making a decision, when we feel bullied, even coerced, manipulated into making decisions that we know are not good for us, but because we fear the outcome, because we fear what people might say, because we fear the people that we respect and the people that have always been guiding us. And this is where sometimes it becomes really tricky about who we listen to, who do we give access to our mind, and what do we allow them to pour into our minds. I want you to know, if you are here and this is your experience, that you're valuable, that your value is not diminished based on what happened to you in this relationship, that you can choose what it means for you. You can find a space to unpack. What is it about the stories that shape me? What beliefs do I have about marriage? What are the stories that shape my views and my beliefs? And do I have a space that I can unpack those stories so I can understand them for myself, and so that I can make a decision that is going to be honoring to me and my value and the worth that I have as a human being? And what space can I find to do that very necessary work in, so that I can make a decision what for better or worse means for me? What are the things that you will be okay with? What are the things that you will work through? What are the things that you will excuse and the things that you absolutely will not? What are those things, And just know that you are loved and that you are respected and you're honored by God, whatever the decisions that you make, that he loves you and that his grace is available to you. But try to unpack the cultural beliefs, the religious beliefs, the values and the beliefs that you have about yourself based on your experiences and your circumstances, and how that has shaped you into the person that you are and the decisions that it's influenced. Thank you for joining me in this episode of Stories That Shape Us. I hope you'll join me on the next story.